Today we're going to discuss the resources available at the Central Arkansas Library System's Roberts Library for beginning research on your historic home. The Roberts Library is located at 401 President Clinton Avenue in downtown Little Rock, and we're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, noon to 4 p.m. There are many property history resources available for you to use at the CALS Roberts Library. We have genealogy resources, architectural history resources, and land ownership resources. This is an abbreviated list, and we'll get into how each of these resources can be used as we go along on our case study. So today, we're going to look at 1422 South Battery Street, which is located in the Central High School Historic District. This photograph of the home was taken in 2020. Step 1. Don't recreate the wheel. Look at what research already exists for your property. A couple of ways you can do this are surveys. Surveys were taken by either staff of the State Historic Preservation Office, also known as the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, or the nonprofit the Quapaw Quarter Association. They are the historic preservation nonprofit for Greater Little Rock, and they conducted surveys in an effort to preserve the history of these buildings before they were potentially demolished. So you could reach out and try to find a survey. For this property, there is a survey that exists. It indicates that the home was built around 1900, and it has a little bit of ownership history in it, but it's pretty bare. So that's a place to start, and now we have at least a potential construction date, and we have a little bit of information about the residents who lived there. Additionally, it's important to find out if your home is included in a historic district. So in order to do that, I would recommend using the City of Little Rock's historic district map. So I'm going to navigate over there. I've actually got it already open in a tab. So it looks like our house on Battery is located in, oop, moving around on me here. I'm going to just scroll back over there. Let me back out a little bit. We're a little close. If you are at your home and your home is what you are researching, you can hit this little button here and it will use your current location, which can help you from doing all of this scrolling I'm having to do. But I see that Battery is here and it runs north to south, and I see 16th and I see Daisy Gatson Bates Drive, which is 14th. So I'm going to zoom in there. And then I can go over here, zoom in a little bit more, and I just want to confirm that 1422 is located within the district. So it is. So now I know that it is located within the Central High Historic District. At this point, it's a really good idea to go ahead and see if it's located, since it's located within the historic district, if it has an existing register nomination either individually or if it's considered a contributing structure. 50% of the properties within a historic district have to be contributing for it to get the designation, and a contributing structure has to be at least 50 years old. So that helps us have a little bit more information about the structure, and also if you're hoping to apply for tax credits or something like that, that'll help you with that. So to look at the existing register nominations, we're going to go to the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program's website. Then we're going to go under this Properties tab and choose the National Register of Historic Places. After we've done that, we're going to scroll down, and there's a search at the very bottom here. So since I know it's in the Central High Historic District, I'm going to search that. And hit enter. So now we have the Central High School Neighborhood District Boundary Increase 2. We also have the original Neighborhood District nomination, so I'm going to look at that first. Many of these have not been had optical character recognition applied, so you do have to actually scroll the nomination. But contributing structures are typically listed in a continuation sheet, usually as as a grid, but I'm not seeing that for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the addition. Okay, so this is more what I was looking for. So if we're looking for the addition of anything on Battery Street, we're gonna, there we go, here's Battery. So here's 1422, and it's indicated with a C. As you can see here, it is called the Sarah Percy House, so that would be an important thing for you to note. So we can see where they got that name. Typically that will be your longest earliest resident is where they get that historic name for the property. So that gives us a great place to start. It unfortunately doesn't have a potential construction date, but from that survey we know that's circa 1900. So that's a couple of good indicators that will help us get narrowed down on what our estimated construction date is, which is really the goal of this first step, and understanding the major historical context. So to understand the context, a really good thing to do at this point would also be to look at the Encyclopedia of Arkansas's entry on the Central High neighborhood, and also read this narrative portion the um, of the nomination, because that will talk about why they decided to add these houses and what they contribute to the historic district. So after you've done that and you've got a little bit of information about the home, the next thing I would do is check the QQA records. So those are located at the Roberts Library, as I mentioned, and my search isn't working, so that'll be a good opportunity to try this out. So if we wanted to see the Quapaw Quarter Association records, we would just type in the Quapaw Quarter Association within our collection search. And the first thing you see here is what we call a finding aid in archives. So you'll open that up and you'll choose download and download full finding aid. And then at this point you can do a keyword search. So I'm just going to search for battery because we have specific research files for a lot of these homes. So it jumped to 19 for some reason, so I'm going to go back and see. So if we scroll through here, they go in order of the blocks, so we can see that 1422 does not have a folder. So we didn't get any more information from the Quapaw Quarter Association records, but that's okay. And then the next thing we want to do is search the Chronicle Digital Archive to see if the QQA ever wrote an article about the house. So it would probably be under the historic name, but I'm going to go ahead and try 1422 Battery. And I'm going to put it in quotes, and then I'm going to also say exact phrase. So there's nothing there. So I would also probably try 1422 South Battery and leave it with exact phrase. And I didn't get anything for that either. So there's probably no specific articles on this home. I will also try Sarah Percy, I'm sorry. Nothing for that either. So I'm going to go ahead and write off that there might be anything in the Quapaw Quarter Chronicle. And so at this point we know a potential construction date of about 1900. And we also know that it's located within the Central High Historic District. Just for additional information, I'm going to go ahead and look at this AR County data profile. One of the beautiful things about these is that it has a potential construction date listed to give you a little bit more information if you haven't gotten that from any of the other resources. So we're going to drill down to Pulaski County first and choose Search Real Estate Records. We're going to leave as much information blank as possible because we want to have the widest spread of results that we can get. So I'm going to type in 1422 and then battery, and I'm going to leave the directional off in case that has changed over time. So we see at this point that the home is owned by someone named Crystal George, and that it is located in the Centennial neighborhood. The important things to note at this point are the section, township, range number, the lot block, the subdivision, because all of that can help you find more specific information later on. And then I also recommend downloading the parcel detail. So we're going to click that. And whenever we download this, and you can print this or save it as a PDF, whatever works well for you. Um, the best thing I think about this is that it gives you a potential construction year. So this says 1920, which is much different than 1900. I tend to err on the side of choosing the older date out of whatever resources I have as a place to start. Because if you try to go forward, then you're going to have to go back to 1900 as far as possible in your additional research. So I'm going to stick with my 1900 construction date, but I'm going to keep this 1920 in mind because maybe there was a major alteration or something to the structure at that time. Additionally, some important things to know are that the home has 2 floors, and you can see the modern footprint of the home here. So these are good things to keep in mind as you keep going through your research process. So we've kind of addressed everything on this list here. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next slide. So the next thing we want to do is look at the history of the structure and its occupants. So the Sanborn fire insurance maps are going to be great. We have a database available through the Central Arkansas Library System called the Fire Insurance Maps Online, or FIMO. This is a really great resource. I've navigated here to our Property History Resources page, and you can get to that by going to robertslibrary.org, going to Research, and then Property History Resources. So once we're on that page, to get to the fire insurance maps, you're going to scroll down under Architectural History Resources. I've tried to organize these the same way I did in the slides to make it a little easier on you. So we're going to choose that link. And if you're inside a Central Arkansas Library System branch, it should just pull up for you. If you're at home, you will have to enter your CALS library card number here. So just keep that in mind as you're doing research. There's an interactive map feature available through this database that's really fantastic to help you locate these properties. So we're going to type in 1422 Battery, Little Rock, Arkansas. And it kind of works like Google Maps. As long as you put in a good amount of information, it will probably get you there. So the first year it's showing for us is 1897. The way these maps work, they typically have an index map where you will find a page reference, and then you will use that page to locate your property. So we're going to show the index map first. Give it a minute to load. So it looks like, though there is an index map for this year, this actual area was not shown in the map. So unfortunately, since we don't have a page number indicated like this area and this area and this area, it's not actually surveyed for the fire insurance map this year. So that indicates one of two things. It was maybe under construction, or the lot had been sold but had not been developed yet, or there just wasn't anything there at all. So if we have a construction date around 1900, that sort of fits what we already know about the home. So let's jump ahead to 1913. So in 1913, we have an index map here, and it's showing it's either on the cusp of page 49 or page 50. So I'm going to open this in a new tab. I recommend doing that so you don't lose your original search with your index map. And then we're going to navigate to page 49. And we'll zoom in to see if our home shows up here. It looks like it's going to be on page 50 because it should be right around here. So I'm going to bump over to page 50. And here we have battery. And you can pinch and zoom kind of like you would if you were looking at something on your phone. So here's 1422 South Battery. If you're looking at a fire insurance map for the very first time, this probably doesn't mean very much to you. But another great thing about this database is there is a key feature. So we're going to click the key feature and open that up. And I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to compare this key to our actual map over here. So we can see that this is a dwelling, and it's yellow, so that means it's a frame building, so it's a wood frame house. And whenever you have these dashed lines, these indicate porches. So there are 2 porches, one on the front and one on the back. And that circle there indicates that there is a slate or metal roof on these porches. So if you saw that modern photo, there's no longer definitely a slate or metal roof on any of that house. It's all going to be that modern roofing tile. And then whenever we look at these outbuildings in the back, we can see everything is one story. That's what these ones indicate. And the X's indicate that it has a shingled roof, so very similar to today. So the main part of the house has a shingled roof as well as the back porch. The front porch has a slate or metal roof, and these outbuildings are a stable, a frame stable, and then also a one-story, probably storage building in the back since it doesn't have dwelling indicated. So these are all really helpful things to know as we move forward. For the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and show you what the future ones looked like. So in 1939, we see that sometime between that 1913 map and 1939 map, another story was added to this property, which gets me back to that 1920 date from the county data records. So perhaps maybe around 1920 that second floor was added. I would recommend looking through newspapers.com to see if any permits had been filed prior to 1923 as you're moving along and keeping these dates in mind. And to spoil you, going forward from 1939 to 1965 when these fire insurance maps end, there's no major additional changes to the property. So this back porch ends up enclosed, everything eventually gets a slate roof, this is still a frame dwelling, and then this is an apartment in the back. So let's compare that to the modern footprint of the home that we have from Air County data. There are no major changes between that 1939 map and what we see today. I do think at some point the siding was updated to be more modern from the probably wood siding that was put on the frame building when it was built. And we have kind of a description of the upper living space that we're not going to get from the Sanborn maps. But you can see that overall this house has remained relatively unchanged over its probably at least 100 years of having this two-story construct and the closed-in back porch. So, now that we know that from the fire insurance maps, we can also look a little bit at the style reference guide from the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program to get an idea of what architectural style this house is. I would also recommend looking back at that Historic Preservation Program National Register nomination for the entire district because there's probably prominent architectural styles that were common in that area during that time, and you can compare that to what your house looks like and see if they're the same. The next thing we're going to do is look at city directories. These are digitally available through Ancestry through 1959 and through the Quapaw Quarter Association's reading room or at the Roberts Library through the present. So I'm going to choose that link there, and that takes us to Ancestry Library. This is also accessible through that property history research page I mentioned. So to get to the city directories, the easiest thing to do is go to Search and Card Catalog. And then you're going to go to Directories and Member Lists, City and Area Directories, USA, Arkansas. And then you get this US City Directory Collection, which is where we're trying to go. So once we get here, my recommendation to do at this point is to say for sure that the person lived in Little Rock, if that's the area that you're looking in. And then in this keyword here, enter your address without direction. So I'm going to do 1422 Battery, even though now it is known as 1422 South Battery. And I'm leaving everything else blank. And make sure you put this in that keyword section. Then we're going to hit search. So now we have a lot of different references here, and unfortunately they don't go in chronological order, but it gives you all of the city directory results in one place. So I'm going to look for the earliest date that I see someone. So I've got an 1897 here, so that's pretty exciting. So that's going to be, I think, our earliest, but we're going to go ahead and check page 3. It looks like 1897 is our earliest date. So my suspicion that perchance the building was under construction and that's why it didn't make it in that Sanborn fire insurance map is probably pretty accurate. They probably assessed prior to publishing. So I'm going to say that our estimated construction date might be 1897. On that property history research page, I did want to mention that we have some linked resources to help you keep up with your research. So this ownership history tracking worksheet will be great for as you're going through the city directories. You can put the name, the year, and any notes you have. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that 1897, which was, I believe, on, I guess, there it is, page 2. I missed it the first time. So here we see that this is probably misspelled, so I'm going to go into the image, but a person was living there, and they had a spouse named Eugene, and they lived at 1422 Battery. So I'm going to look for this person. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So it's Lelia, I assume, Morrison, widow of Eugene, and she lives at 1422 Battery. So that is something you would write on this ownership tracking form, and then you just need to poke your way through the city directories and try to stitch something together. I do want to also mention that we've got other genealogical resources available at the Roberts Library, and if there is linked data, so references to these people in more than one place, a lot of times it will show up in that right hand corner. So I'm going to pick someone else, and this is a Sally Perry, so that might be related to Sarah Percy. Or more likely, this P name that shows up a lot more often is correct, and the others are maybe misspellings. So this is something you kind of have to look through as you're going through the records and try to decide if the people getting the information could not correctly spell the names. This happens a lot in historical record gathering because a lot of people were not literate, and all of this record gathering was taken by verbal conversation between what was called an enumerator and the person giving the information. So once you kind of get your city directory stuff in line, we've got a potential construction date of 1897. We know a little bit about the people who lived there. And just to spoil you a little bit, it looks like it's a multi-generational family of women who lived there from about 1897 to the late 1960s through the city directory research, which gives you a really great picture of the story of this home. And so then I would go to newspaper articles to see if I could find any additional information. So that's the last thing that I'll do on this front today. So we're going to look for 1422 Battery in newspapers.com. That went to the wrong newspapers.com link. So I'm going to go to Roberts Library Property Resources again. And then I'm going to go to newspapers.com here and hope, yes, okay, so that redirected correctly. So you want it to say Central Arkansas Library System and Arkansas State Archives at the top. So we're going to type in 1422 Battery here. And I forgot my other quote. It seems to have pulled records anyway, but I want to make sure you include those quotes so that you don't get those separately. So there's a lot of hits here. So we're seeing a Sally P. That seems to be the name. It's definitely not Perry or Percy. So this is a fun article that talks about a wedding that took place in the home, and who was able to come. This is kind of a good example of the extra information available through here. From the city directories, if you dug a little bit more, you would see that they were music teachers who lived in the home. So as we scroll through these records here, we can see that there is reference to Sally P., teacher of piano and harmony, opens her studio at her home on September 12th in 1921. So this sort of adds to the layers of the story of the home. It's a multi-generational home that was all women music teachers whose children ended up doing the same thing. So that's a lot of good stuff for the narrative of the history of the home. So we've observed structural changes. We know that a second story was added sometime between 1913 and 1939. And we know a little bit about the people who lived in the home and how they and what they did there. They ran a music school out of the home. So that's a lot of really great information that we've gathered from these resources. I've tried to condense that a little bit just so I don't talk too long. And then the last thing we're going to do is put it all together. So now we know that the home was built in 1897. It is a contributing structure in the Central High Neighborhood Historic District. We know that it was probably built in 1897, and we know a lot about the people who lived there through genealogical resources and newspaper references. So we can kind of use that to create a narrative about the history of the home. And we want to see how that story fits into the story of the community. So we want to look at the district nomination and see, do these folks fit the demographics of the people who lived in the community? We also might want to look at the Encyclopedia of Arkansas to see if there's information about the family, music teachers, anything from that time period, education during that period, because that just kind of fills in more gaps in the story of the home. And you might also look at books and articles and then do specific searches for these names in archival collections to see if you can find any additional information. The goal here is to create a cohesive narrative about the history of the home and its context. I hope that that gives you a good place to start as you begin your journey doing research on these properties. As always, you are welcome to visit the Roberts Library and visit our staff there. You're also welcome to reach out to me directly. My name is Danielle F. Sorda. I'm the Community Outreach Archivist for the CALS Roberts Library, and my email is dtfsorda@cals.org. Thanks so much for watching.